Y'all, the break week and the delays are over. Chapter 266 is finally here, so let's just jump straight into it. Strap in, spoilers beware. Alright, so the chapter begins with an editor's note that says Yuji is listening in to Megumi's soul. And Megumi says, "That's enough. I just wanted to create a world where my sister Sumiki wouldn't have to suffer any needless misfortune. Or at the very least," he continues, "I wanted to maintain that fragile life as much as I possibly could." Megumi continues to wax poetic on this ideal world that he wished existed while he reminisces about memories with his sister, such as when they used to cook meals together or just watch sunbeams fall into their folded laundry. He wishes that he could have seen Sumiki stand side by side a person like you, Itadori, in the rays of the setting sun. That would have been true happiness to me. And then Megumi finishes by saying, "But I've just had enough." And then Yuji launches into a speech about his grandfather Wasuke, and he says, "Early on when my grandpa first was diagnosed with lung cancer, the doctors offered him a treatment that would have come with some really bad side effects, and so he ultimately turned it down. I think he thought that his body was strong enough to beat the cancer even without the treatment. Then, as it went on, every so often I'd hear about euthanasia, but that didn't seem right. It felt like that was someone else's choice. I would have been able to bear it, but it must have been tough on him, having to decide about that." He says, "Ever since coming to Jujutsu High, I've been inundated with all of these awful thoughts. And when I think about it, if this will keep going on and on forever, I find myself able to empathize with my grandpa, or anyone that's faced with a helpless decision like that." And because Yuji understands that, he realizes that he can't tell Megumi that he has to live right now, because he just recognizes how dark a spot Megumi is in right now, and those aren't the words that he needs to hear. We then cut back to the fray of battle, so not Yuji and Sukuna as they were walking around last chapter, but back to Heian-era Sukuna in the midst of Yuji's domain, and he immediately casts Hollow Wicker Basket in order to protect himself from Yuji's domain. Then Sukuna thinks to himself that I'd like to use Gojo's method of destroying my brain and healing it in order to get my curse technique back, but that's a pretty big risk with the damage I still have from Unlimited Void. The narrator then goes on to explain that unlike a domain expansion, which requires a lot of output, Hollow Wicker Basket and Simple Domain can be maintained with much less. This technique allows sorcerers to buy themselves some time before they're going to be hit by the sure hit of the domain expansion. But eventually, without fail, Hollow Wicker Basket and Simple Domain will be overpowered because the domain expansions have that much more output. But Sukuna is able to supplement the output of his Hollow Wicker Basket by maintaining the hand sign the entire time, which he can easily do because he has 4 arms. So he is able to maintain this Hollow Wicker Basket whilst continuing to fight. Then for the next few pages, it's just all gas, no brakes. Yuji and Sukuna are throwing hands, and there is no dialogue for 2 pages until Sukuna says, "Color me surprised. I didn't even realize just how angry I would get at the thought of somebody looking down on me. The fact that you showed me pity, I cannot wait to make every human other than you atone for your sins." We then transition to Kid Megumi walking down the alleyway, the scene where he first meets Gojo and asks, "What's up with that face?" However, when he asks that, we see that it's not Gojo there, it's actually Yuji. And Yuji responds that, "I'll be really sad without you, Megumi." We then cut back to Sukuna, whose leg plummets into his own shadow, and he's thinking to himself, wait, my 10 Shadows technique stopped functioning after Maharaga was destroyed. Is this Megumi? Sukuna then thinks to himself about how he's submerged in the bath. This shouldn't be possible, and yet Yuji's dismantles have somehow breathed new life into Megumi. Now with Sukuna off balance and off guard, Yuji pounces. He rushes in and just starts unleashing a flurry of blows, all at Sukuna, who is doing his best to try and keep up defense-wise. There's then a large cracking sound effect, and Sukuna realizes that Yuji is going to break his Hollow Wicker Basket. Then on the next page, Yuji's arm splinters away. Whatever this is on his forearm was just completely destroyed by Sukuna, and Yuji realizes that he must have gotten his burnt out curse technique back, and he sees that Sukuna is going for Gojo's hand sign. Then Sukuna, who has successfully recovered his curse technique, goes to cast the domain but is shocked because he realizes that Yuji's hand is missing 2 of its fingers. Sukuna then realizes that he can feel one of his own fingers. And then the final page cuts to seemingly somewhere else entirely, and we are staring down the barrel of a spiral staircase just like this. And suspended over it, connected by what looks like a bunch of thread, is one of Sukuna's fingers. And of course, that's where the chapter ends. How are they going to leave us on this cliffhanger, man? We do have an editor's note, though, that says, "What is this finger?" The editor also tells us that next week, this decisive battle will reach its climax, and JJK is going to be on the cover of Weekly Shonen Jump and also have a color spread to commemorate that. But man, like, a lot to unpack, a lot to think about in this chapter, like, namely, what the hell is going on with this staircase? All right, so I'm just gonna think through this here, but y'all bear with me because we're right hot off the presses, right? This finger is most likely that final finger that Gojo hid in order to stay Yuji's execution. Now, we previously assumed that maybe Yuta Rika had eaten that finger in order to copy, cleave, and dismantle. Now, that still could be the case, and maybe she just didn't need to consume the entirety of the finger, maybe just a portion of it. Or maybe Yuta was able to successfully copy, cleave, and dismantle from Yuji, even though Yuji had not awakened the technique yet. Maybe because they body swapped, he was still able to copy it, or maybe he was just able to copy it anyway. I don't know. All that to say is that my best guess would be that that finger is the last finger. That seems to be what was implied there. So is that staircase in that location somewhere that the finger is hidden, or is it somehow connected to what's going on with Yuji and Sukuna right now? Because the way the panels played out, Sukuna has this realization, and we see that Yuji is missing two fingers. So it seems to draw a line as if those things are connected, but I'm not sure they are, because if it is the final 20th finger, then it shouldn't be related to Yuji missing fingers in this moment. And I know I am just yapping here, but I'm just trying to process this. Again, for now, I think that must be the final finger, and whatever glimpse we're getting of it is not what's happening right now in Yuji's domain. And speaking of Yuji's domain, we still haven't seen what the actual effect of it is, because Sukuna had the hollow wicker basket up the whole time. So I don't know if we'll get to see that, or now that Sukuna's opening his domain, what's going to happen? Did Sukuna open his domain, or was he distracted by that realization? It was kind of unclear in the panels themselves. But we may need to wait for the official drop, official translations to really piece exactly everything that's going there. Man, a lot to think about. Freaking Megumi came back. Okay, maybe comeback is a little premature, but he is fighting back. And I loved that sequence with Yuji being able to empathize with Megumi and where he was, thanks to remembering how tough it was with his grandfather dealing with cancer. He realizes that you can't just tell people, hey, lighten up, it's gonna be okay. Things are much more nuanced than that. So instead of pushing Megumi, he instead waited for the right moment, and they got to have that Gojo-esque flashback scene in the alleyway. I just absolutely love how Gege handled that. Anyway, I'm yapping a mile a minute, but I love this chapter. No break next week. Like the editor said, he's teasing the climax to this battle. So, are we going to see the domain clash between the two of them? Are we going to find out what the hell's going on with this finger? So much to think about, so much to talk about. Let me know y'all's thoughts down in the comments, and you, of course, will be hearing from me soon. Psych, you're actually hearing from me way sooner than you thought, because I was having some thoughts as I was editing this together, and I just realized the sequence of these panels, we have Yuji's arms get destroyed, right? Now, whether it's a curse tool, whether it's blood manipulation, doesn't really matter. Those get destroyed, and that's when Sukuna realizes Yuji is missing fingers. So my working theory right now is Sukuna in that moment realized that maybe Yuta/Rika didn't eat his final finger, and they ate Yuji's fingers instead, and were able to copy Shrine via him, meaning his final finger is somewhere that he didn't expect it to be, which then leads us to Gege showing us that finger suspended above the stairway. Well, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, y'all, let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.